such a pleasure to be here, and not at all intimidating to be here in the spotlight with some journalists that I'm seeing that are our attendees, whose work that I've certainly read and followed over the years. And there are quite a few of you that I've gotten to talk to on the phone, and I so appreciate you being here today. And hopefully in the chat, you can vouch for the fact that, in fact, if you reach out to me via email, particularly, that I'll get back to you. So I strongly encourage you. And if there's one thing I want you all to take away, it's the fact that you have top shelf, top-notch, rapid response legal help in Oregon. And it is astonishing. It is quite a thing. And so I really want you all to encourage your colleagues to, speak to your editors, and just reach out to me, send me an email. I want, if you ever think to yourself, I wonder if I should contact Ellen, or I wonder if somebody can help me with this public records issue. Even if you just think it's something basic, please email me, because part of what the local legal initiative is about is trying to really assess what the needs are. And the folks that put together the grant for the local legal initiative, SPJ, the University of Oregon, Oregon Public Broadcasting, and of course the incredible work of Ginger McCall at the open records position. The kind of groundwork that has been laid in Oregon is significant and was probably the biggest reason why Oregon was chosen out of all the West Coast cities. I mean, California applied, Washington applied, almost every single jurisdiction in the United States applied for a local legal initiative. And Oregon was selected because there is a very robust, particularly public records legislative framework here. And so I want to talk just a little bit about that and what it is that I can help you all with in that arena specifically. So my overall remit for Oregon, for you all, is to support investigative and enterprise journalism. And my background, for those of you who don't know, and I actually have no doubt that as you're listening to me talk, that surely some of you are Googling. So what you'll see is that my background is a practitioner entirely in Oregon, my entire career, which has now spanned almost 20 years as an attorney. And I've primarily practiced on the government side of litigation here in Oregon. So I'm a former prosecutor, and I'm also a former deputy city attorney for the city of Portland. And so in that regard, I've done a lot of public records work and open meetings work. And so I think what you'll find when you contact me is that you're going to get advice from me, not legal advice, but basic information about how to navigate the public records context, simple things, complex things. That's what you're going to get if you reach out via email and contact me. But I want to talk a little bit more about why it is that Oregon needs an attorney, because the very first line of reporting for you all when you want public records is to file a public records request. And that is more art than science. And I think having the opportunity to work with people like Nick Budnick and Les Zeitz, in particular, over these last few weeks has really given me the perspective that you all, when you first file that public records request, it's not as much a legal document as a persuasive thing. And I have to say, it has really been a joy getting to read the way that you all communicate with government, both as a government attorney, but also as now getting to help advise you all about how to navigate it, right? So what I've noticed is that in your public records requests, it's really helpful, I think, that you don't approach it as a legal document or that there's magic language. It's really you just trying to say, hey, I'm reporting on this story. Can you give me, this information quickly. And what ends up happening, right, is that government, particularly in Oregon, and this is not uncommon, but has I think, a perspective sometimes that the public records law is a nuisance, or it's something that is not a priority. It's an afterthought for public agencies. And there are lots of reasons for that I know you all are aware of. But when you start to find that you're not getting through, that those initial efforts in your outreach via public records requests are being met either with resistance or being ignored, that's the point at which you want to think to yourself, I should probably reach out and bounce this off of somebody else. And that person can be either, and I'll let Nick and Rachel speak for themselves, but it can either be SPJ or it can be me. Email me. I can't take every case to litigation, but I have more than enough capacity and certainly the desire to help you when you get that initial pushback or you're not getting what you want. So that's when I want you to email me. But like I said, I want to talk a little bit about what it is my JD does for you, what it is that my litigation skills, what I bring to this, which is my remit is for investigative and enterprise journalism. And Nick and I had a fun conversation yesterday trying to define that exactly, which I thought, it's very straightforward. And I've come to realize, well, maybe it's not so straightforward. I mean, I can see that Beth Slovic has joined us, and I bet she will have some interesting things maybe to ask or to say about exactly what investigative journalism means. And, Anna Del Savio, I see you in the, so I think there are plenty of you that absolutely know what we're talking about. But for me, what I've come to understand is that investigative journalism often is something that develops as you get more and more resistance to getting your public records, and that you get that spidey sense that the government is not responding in the normal way. They're taking too long, or they're giving you documents that aren't fully responsive. And I don't know how else to describe it, but maybe your spidey sense goes off. And those are, again, the times when I think if you reach out to me, I can start to help you identify the legal issues that might actually result in litigation. And I'll just close by saying this. I'm one person, that's very true. And as Kamisha just talked about, there's an incredible firepower that RCFP can bring to a variety of issues. But for me, I actually, while I can't take every case, I'm adept. And so if you email me and you tell me about a public records issue that you're having, I get to sort it through our various litigation priorities, which I describe as what I'm looking for is to target under-resourced journalists and newsrooms, which I think probably if you all could raise your hands, everyone would say, well, that's all the newsrooms and journalists in Oregon. We're all under-resourced. I think that's quite true. But particularly what I'm focusing on are nonprofit journalists, so organizations like Street Roots and Underscore. And then as Kamisha said, I want to be particularly welcoming for communities of color, LGBTQI, journalists and news organizations, and the reporters that cover those stories, as well as Indigenous communities, because we have such a vibrant tribal community here, and the reporting that comes out of that is nationally recognized. So when I say under-resourced, I'm specifically talking about those kinds of journalists and the stories that they're doing. And then I think the only other thing that I want to say, and then I'll wrap up my comments, is that I wanted to leave you with at least one example of what I'm talking about when I talk about litigation, and how if you contact me and we're going to go back and forth and talk about your public records request and your situation and why you're not getting the records. But what happens when I send you that engagement letter and say, I want you to be my client, I want to take your case through the court system, through the appellate system. Let me tell you what that might look like. So about 2 months ago, Les Zeitz contacted me about a story that the Malheur Enterprise had invested almost 2 years in already. And he asked me, do you have the bandwidth to take on a piece of this public records fight? I'm quite the fangirl of Oregon journalists. And so, of course, getting contacted by Mr. Zeitz was both flattering and exciting, and particularly because it's a watchdog story that he was doing about a long-serving legislator who has a troubling mix of both private and public roles. And so I didn't hesitate to jump in, and within 2 weeks, we had filed a petition with the local Harney County DA, and that DA issued an absolutely scathing opinion to the local agency that had been foot dragging and frankly worse, had been obstructing the Malheur's absolutely reasonable and straightforward requests for records to which it was entitled. And so that sort of is, I think, a good example of what can happen. It wasn't, Mr. Zeitz had done an incredible amount of work already filing public records requests. And it was at the moment that he realized, I'm not going to get the kind of response that I want, that he called in what he tweeted later with some top shelf legal help. And it wasn't that I swooped in and made the situation perfect. It's that when you have an attorney, it brings a certain credibility, it brings a certain level of focus to the petition and other legal proceedings. And that's the kind of thing that the local legal initiative is focused on, is really trying to support you all as you work through the public records process to, and the Knight Foundation is what supports the local legal initiative. And what they're focused on, they want to see your stories. They want to support your watchdog journalism. They want to support important stories that are not otherwise going to get told unless you all have access to courts, unless you have access to public records. And so that's really what, again, I want most for you all to take away, is that I am here for you all. And I know you have other resources, and some of you work for news organizations where you have attorneys, and those are fantastic resources, but I absolutely want you all to think of me and to email me about your public record issues in particular. So I'll leave it at that, and let's get to questions and discussions.